and the things of life. That's the sort of music you listen to it. It makes you just, sit down and reflect who you are as an individual. Good morning to you, our listeners, or those of you in Classic 105.5 and 105.9 on the FM band. Again, thank you for having me in your living rooms, wherever you are, offices at this time. For those of you that's just we joining you on television, we say thanks for being part of the conversation. Those of you that's just joining us via social media, our Facebook page, or our YouTube channel, we say good morning to you. Your boy JC here with you on a Saturday. On a Friday, indeed, it's a pleasure being here with you. I'm already started thinking about work tomorrow. I'm not sure that is a good thing. But on Friday, you're thinking about work on Saturday. Well, it probably either shows how committed I am, or maybe that I need a little rest, Jan. Yeah, maybe. But either way, folks, joining me in the studio, certainly today is not about me. It's young Javid Mitchell, and so he is a recent graduate of Howard University, and certainly he's joining me here this morning. Young Javid, good morning. How are you? Welcome to the Mid-Morning Buzz.
Good morning, Mr. Joseph.
How have you been? How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I am excellent. I'm happy to be here with you in the studio to be showing you a success story, the journey from then on till now. But before we get into your exploits at Howard University, who are you? Who is Javid Mitchell?
All right. It's a difficult question.
The simple version, though. The simple version.
All right. So, who am I? I am, born and raised Grenadian. And all my life, I would have attended all schools here. So I would have attended firstly First Choice Junior School. From there, I would have then attended the Grenada Boys Secondary School, TAMCC. That's a simple version. So I'm a regular, everyday Grenadian.
And that's why I ask you, because, sometimes when we get into these success stories, some people seem to want to position those stories to children that are somehow that had maybe some special advantage in life. You grew up, I know Daddy. You grew up as a regular child, regular parents who just work to do what they have to do to send you to school. Correct?
That is correct.
I mean, I've known your father for years, and he's always hustling. Always hustling. Good morning to you, Alan. And it's important that I say that, because very often people assume that the success in life comes to those who were born with an advantage. You didn't have any advantage, though. But I'm assuming as you went along your path in life, there were some values and things that you learned that helped to steer you. What were some of those?
I learned a bit of values. So as you said, Dad is always hustling. I think I picked that up from a very young age as well. Back in secondary school in GBSS, I was referred to as the Black Syrian. Sorry to say, but
I don't know why they seem to be. I tell you what, though, in GBSS, that's a culture. There's always a Syrian in GBSS.
Yeah. So from early on, I think I understood what it meant to work hard. So I had a bit of hustle in me as well.
Right.
So even my dad would say, you always want to sell everything. But so I picked up that from very early. I had a very strong work ethic, and I was just very driven.
Right. And did you, in those early days at the GBSS, actually even think that which where you are now, that you'll be enjoying that sort of academic success?
If you would have asked me then, I would not have believed you, to be honest. In a million years, I would not have been able to foresee this right now. I wasn't the brightest, I would say. I surely wasn't the bottom of the barrel, but I wasn't the top as well. Right. I was just average. Yeah.
You left GBSS, you went to TAMCC. Let's talk about that transitionary phase.
There wasn't much of a... Well, the transition wasn't huge for me. The only difference I would say is that you were given more freedom, because now you're most of a young adult. Right. So there is no one on your shoulders. For instance, You don't want to come to class? Fine. No one is pressuring you. There was a bit less pressure in time CC, so no one is pressuring you and say, go to class. Or so it was you now to make the decision on, well, I would say take charge of your learning at that point.
And that sort of freedom can either make you or break you as a young adult.
Yes, sir. Correct.
We talked about your life in GBSS, and I know when we prior to this interview, I said to you that's one of the things we share in common. That appreciation of the GBSS way of life, in notwithstanding which generation you come from. And there were some things that you shared that was kind of pertinent to drafting you, crafting you, to make you who you are, in terms of being able to appreciate what you wanted to be when you grew up. But how do you achieve it?
Right. So I was looking at things that, even as simple as how you dress, for example. So while we were at the GBSS, you always have your shirt tucked neatly into your pants. You're always well attired.
So deportment was key.
Deportment, grooming.
Right.
Your hair must be properly groomed. If it's well combed, you're properly groomed. Then when you look at things in, let's say, for example, I always use as an example how you stand or your posture.
You gave me that.
Your posture, and I would have seen those things carried over in, I guess, my professional life after the GBSS, even without me noticing it. And it's when you reflect, you'd say, but wait, this is what we learned in school. This is what they always taught us, how to carry yourself.
Right. And even the Bible says that you teach a child the way that he should grow, and when he's old, you definitely wouldn't depart. So you left GBSS, left TAM CC, went on to Howard University, and I do forgive me, I did prescribe you an accolade of being a Harvard boy. And I saw you smiled.
You might be predicting the future.
For all you know. But let's talk about Howard University. When you went to Howard University, the process, the journey, and where you are now.
Do you want from, I guess, applying, or from what angle do you want it?
The application process. You could share a bit of that with us.
Okay, so throughout the process of actually looking for colleges, I knew I wanted to go to college.
Right.
I didn't know exactly where. So I was figuring out the process. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have anyone to guide me in terms of the application process, or, things that I had to do. So I made some mistakes along the way. One of those was not doing the SATs. So I'm preaching to everyone out there now that would like to pursue a college education, whether it may be in the US or, the SATs is very important.
Contextualize it for those who may not have an appreciation.
So basically, what the SAT examination would do, let's say you obtain a good score, that would help set you apart from everyone else, and that would pretty much dictate if you get a scholarship, what type of scholarship you get, if you get a full, a partial, or
right.
Any form of aid you get would pretty much basically depend on that.
Mm-hmm. You went through that. You were in now 3.5 years after, and you did talk about that 3.5 year process. It was in fact should have been a 4-year
degree.
4-year degree. You finished it in 3.5.
Yes.
Talk to us about how you're doing. 21 credits a term?
Yeah, so I did, the only time I took 15 credits was freshman year, first year. And from sophomore year all the way up, I did 18, 20, and 21 credits all the way through until last semester. I was basically searching for classes to take in order to meet the minimum.
Right.
How I did it? So I had a very interesting journey. So if we were to reflect back on freshman year, I had a very long commute, so 2 hours one way. So I would have spent essentially 4 hours per day just commuting.
Mm.
Uh, I don't know if I should say this or not. COVID kind of helped me out. So COVID was the secret. So
Explain.
the explanation is basically when the pandemic would have hit and we went online,
Right.
I would have now regained 4 hours in commute time.
Ah.
So that additional 4 hours that I saved as a result of being home,
Right.
I then channeled that into school. So that's how I was able to pick up the extra credits.
And it's interesting that you say that because, I mean, a lot of people saw COVID as the worst thing that could happen. And for you, you took a negative, what came across as a seemingly negative situation. You worked it out to your advantage. And I guess it worked because you're into, you do computer science.
Computer science, yes.
Right.
As I would tell everyone, honestly, I know COVID is a bad, it's a negative thing.
Yeah, when you hear it.
The amount of people that died, a lot of people lost their families, and it was very tragic. It was a tragic moment.
Right.
But I remember when it all started. I am a very active person. I hate being inside.
Right.
I'm always up and about, and it wasn't sitting well with me. So I had to find something to occupy my time.
Right.
And I must say that I always had a problem. I didn't have any scholarships. I had no funding, no scholarships, nothing. So I was always thinking of ways of how can I finish school earlier, achieving the degree, finishing earlier, and still with the same get the same quality of education.
And I'm happy again that you reiterated that, because we hinted to it earlier that your journey was not based on the fact that you came from a family that had the dollars and cents, the connections, that they could say, Javid, here you go, do what you have to do. I remember when I spoke with Alan, and you're saying, boy, and appreciated doing that which family they would have to do, parents would have to do to support you.
Yeah. I cannot continue to say thanks. I'm very thankful. Family, everyone that was a part of the journey. Yeah.
So you've gone through that. COVID came and go. Then comes graduation. Graduation with a 4.0 GPA. Top of your class.
Top of the college as well.
So not just the science class.
So there were 2 plaques. So one was top of the computer science department, and then the other was the highest GPA in the College of Engineering and Architecture. Yeah.
So we're looking at this one presented to Javid Mitchell in recognition. Overall highest GPA for the college, 4.0. That is, it's no easy feat, is it? What sort of advice would you offer to young persons with attempts you see in the U.S. that's having that challenge to commit themselves to what is it that they want to do?
So the journey is a bit different it varies from person to person. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was ideal to find balance. So anyone that knows me, I'm not necessarily the person that would sit in a book 24/7. I frankly don't study.
Okay, let's make sure we get that right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so the journey is different it varies. So you have to find what works for you. So, for instance, what works for me is I do not miss class. So in my 3.5 years, I was in every single class there was. I came from 14 miles away, 2 hours, and I made it to my 8 a.m. classes. And, how my brain works is once I understand something, I understand it. So I would sit right at the front of the class.
Right.
And I would ask 1,000,001 questions. Everyone would hate me for asking 1,000,001 questions. Sometimes they praise me because they have the question, but they're afraid to ask. And once I understand, once I get the concept, that's it. So I would do light revision review. I did computer science, so it was very intensive in math. I had to take if one math class more, and I would have a minor in maths. So that's to tell you the amount of mathematics I took. So it was very math intensive and programming. So I guess from the GBSS again, one thing I learned with maths from Mr. Kelvis Joseph, you have to practice. So I practiced. Then I would do coding. So in the evenings, well, I know to make it there, you must get an internship. From day one, they preached, get an internship and, to set up yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So once I'm finished with all my homework at the end of the day, I would pull up a website you call LeetCode. For all the programmers everybody that wants to learn programming, there's a website you call LeetCode. You have thousands of practice questions.
Right.
You do 2 questions a day, 3 questions a day. And it just helps you to practice, improve your skills. So that's what I did. The math, if you ask me, as almost any other kids back in secondary school.
Did you hate math back then?
I hated math. I didn't know math. I hated math. I remember sometime in primary school, after school, I used to follow my dad to his job when he come to pick me up.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the general manager found out I did not know my timetables. He said no. And from then, every time I would go there, I had to take a notebook.
Uh-huh.
And he put me sit down, learn the timetables,
Right.
and then I have to go recite it to him. And that is how I learned my timetables. Thanks, Mr. Hardy. Yeah, and I got into Howard, so freshman year, I got in, the math class were all filled.
Right.
And 3 weeks later, a slot opened up. I saw it. I went to the advisor. I said, so there's one slot. He said, Javid, I do not advise you to take this class. 3 weeks would have passed. You would have missed a substantial amount of coursework, homework, assignments.
Right.
I do not advise you to take this class. I said, sir, if I do not take this class now, it would set me back a semester or even a year, because then my required classes, I would not have been able to take all of the required classes.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Joseph, I got into that class, spoke with the teacher on the first day, and for the entire semester, for the remaining 3 months or so, every evening I would finish all my classes at about 3 p.m.,
Mm-hmm.
and I would take my bag and I would walk over to her office. She had a little desk and a chair, and she would hand me a math book this thick,
Uh-huh.
and I would sit there from 3 to 6 just practicing math, practicing, catching up on the assignments that I would have missed. And I remember after he said, I don't know how you did it, but somehow you managed to pass the class and ace the class. And yeah, so I hated math. I was not good at it. Yeah.
Well, that, of course, as you reflect now, is a good point in time to say to kids that it's not about probably not liking or liking, but having an understanding and appreciation of the subject itself.
That is correct. I think, looking back at it now, I wouldn't say I hated math. I would say it's one of the subjects that challenged me the most. So I don't think, naturally as human beings, we don't like anything that's hard or anything that challenges us. So I think that is why I would have came to the conclusion that I hated maths. But it didn't make no sense to me or anyone I would have told, because I loved physics, but I hated math.
Well, that's interesting. You love physics, but you hate maths.
So everyone would say, but physics is harder than maths. So I remember transposing. In maths, I couldn't transpose in Form 3 or 4. I didn't know how to transpose. But then in physics class, no one could come up with the formulas better than me.
Right.
And when I compared it but someone said it's the same way that you transpose the formulas in physics that you do in math. So it's actually the same thing. And that is how I would have learned.
But tell me if you agree or not. There's always been a question regarding the structure of our curriculum. And very often the teachers, different subjects, they're done in abstract. So, for example, let's say physics. You will teach a child Newton's law of motion. Right? And all you try to do is to cram
the
law. So you cram that without necessarily having an appreciation to what is it that the law says to you in its natural sense.
That is absolutely correct. So just to go back, that is actually what happened to me in regards to the timetables. So from pre-primary school, I knew all the timetables. I would say it with my eyes closed. And the Kiskidi book, I don't know if anyone remembers. Future! I used to read the Kiskidi book with my eyes closed. So, well, I didn't read it. I recited it. Right. So what would have happened, I actually would have crammed that book, and then I crammed the timetables. So that is why when I would have gotten to primary school, I didn't know the timetables. So you have a valid point.
And it's important. It's important. The question of I could ask you, the revamping of our education system. You've been through it. You're still young. Your life ahead of you. What's your thoughts on it? What sort of changes, if ever, would you like to see be made to it?
There's a lot of changes that can be made. Personally, for me, I push technology. So there's a lot that we can do technology-wise to improve the educational system. Just as an example, I was having a conversation a few days ago with someone regarding the CPA exam, you call it now, Common Entrance.
Yeah.
And basically how we in Grenada would deal with students that has disabilities or, certain conditions. I won't say that you can't learn, but you would have to adapt now a certain learning style for those students. And I was telling that individual I was speaking to that I would have noticed that in the States, persons with like ADHD, for example, or any conditions, whether they may need to permit them extra time or, get a reader or, any form of disability or barrier you have, they make sure that everything is done to give you the fair chance as everyone else. And I was telling the person that I think that's something that we really need to implement here, because I would have came across an individual very intelligent, but you may be dyslexic, or and you'd write the common entrance, you'd fail, or so to me there is a lot of ways to improve in the system. So one, accessibility, and then technology. So there's a lot I would say milk technology. It's at a point right now whereas it has a lot to offer in terms of learning. You could practically learn everything from your home. So technically, degree that I would have fought so hard for, I would have been able to, get the knowledge. But there's much more than the coursework. The coursework is online, but from what I would have realized, there's much more than the coursework. So you go for the whole experience. So it's a whole different eye-opener. So while you can learn to be a software engineer or anything online, I think the school, the infrastructure provides you with some morals, values, and experiences that you just cannot get from the online aspect of it.
Let me ask you, as you move forward, I don't know time because you have a tight schedule. Yeah. We see a lot of young persons, they finish, they leave university, and then the question is, how do they transition? Where do you see yourself in the next couple of years, Javid? And how do you see yourself as becoming that change agent?
So, fortunately for me, the transition was very easy. because working is nothing new for me. I started very young. But I see why the transition is very hard for some, because now pretty much before you would go to school, eat, sleep, study. That was the routine. But now you have responsibilities, bills, whether it may be moving away from home, living on your own, renting, apartment, car, bills. So I see how that transition can be very stressful for a lot of individuals. For me, where I see myself in the future was the question. Right. So there's a lot I want to do. One, I like helping people. So one thing that I have a passion to do. So I've kind of started just sharing with friends and so on. Anyone that would have reached out to me about what is the process, studying in the States, anything. So I would help in that regard. So I helped with essays, anything, the whole process from completing the application. So at some point, I want to do a non-profit or some form of something that I can set up to share the knowledge and help to get that across.
And that would be just your way of giving back, help
Yes.
to give back.
Yeah, so that's what I want to do to help, because the biggest thing is information. There is a lot of opportunities and so out there, but if you don't know about it or how to tap into it, then there's no way of reaching it. So I mean, for me, even though I would not have gotten those opportunities, I would have seen how to access it, what you have to do. So I want to share that. So it's not fair to be selfish and keep that to myself and say, oh, I didn't get it, so
why should
I share it? Yeah.
So you've done what you've done. You're through with Howard University, finishing at the top of your class, top of the university for the graduating term. Computer science. How do you see computer science changing? We in the administration continues to have the conversation about transformation. We keep hearing about the use of technology to take us to the next level. How do you see yourself? And what are some of the practical ways, as a young man, that you see technology changing our lives, our way of life as a people?
Well, one example of the top of my head, during the COVID times, there was something, that didn't stop you from getting ill or, people would have had conditions before COVID, for example. Let's say you would have had high blood pressure or, anything. And you would need to go to the doctor. Everyone was remaining at home. So we would have seen something you call teledoc. And now you can stay at home and see a doctor, get your prescription, get your medication. Another example is 3D printing. So now they have been testing the 3D printing to print organs. So computer science, it has in regards to healthcare, for example, there's a lot you can do with it in healthcare. Even looking at artificial intelligence, I was reading an article 2 days ago in regards to computer science, artificial intelligence, and cars. So the U.S. government now is actually mandating car manufacturers to have technologies in those cars that at up to 62 miles per hour, it stops if there's a vehicle in front of you or if a pedestrian walks out.
Mm-hmm.
So, the study would have said at least every year 24,000 individuals die as a result of car accidents. Mm-hmm. So that is one way you're seeing technology being used to, kind of help to reduce those accidents and so on, for example.
Are you fearful that AI would somehow, because there's an argument out there that the presence of AI would then make us, even you, obsolete?
Yes and no. AI is very powerful, but at the end, I won't say at the end of the day we have to train the models, but because there are models that actually can train itself now. I still think that it cannot make us as humans obsolete as of yet. There's still a long way to go in terms of developing the technology. And there are certain jobs that you would use AI. It would make certain jobs obsolete, of course. For example, at supermarkets now in the US, for example, you'd see cashiers is one of the hardest things to find, mostly self-checkout. Mm-hmm. And that is made possible through AI, for example. So I think the goal for AI, one of the goals is to use it to do tasks that is too dangerous for humans. And then if we as humans use the AI, it can improve anything that we do. So for example, I have been playing around with an AI model, mm-hmm. and I built a website sometime last week in 2 nights using that model, whereas that would have taken me a couple of days.
Right.
So it took me, actually, if you want to add it up, let's say 1 day to build a full, complete application using AI versus a week. So you can use it to improve your life. So we have to, as with anything else, you can't abuse it. You have to know how you're using it and I guess somehow limit what kind of power you give it.
Because whatever power is given to it, is given to it by a guy like yourself who decides to program it that way. In case you just joined me, folks, we're getting ready to wrap the conversation, though. I'm speaking here with Javid Mitchell, recent graduate of Howard University, graduated with top of his class, not just your science class, but the entire university with a perfect GPA. And before we wrap, though, what's the word of advice you have for young aspiring Grenadians and those who certainly have left, getting ready to move on as they finish CXC to the next phase of your life? What's the advice you have for young people?
So the advice that I have for young people is actually an advice that was given to me. So I'd pass on the baton, as you would say. So my advice is do what you want to do in terms of follow your dreams. Do something that you are passionate about. And once you pursue something that you're passionate about or your dreams, then you would make it.
Follow your dreams, and that is important. But that is notwithstanding the fact that you take advice from from your parents and so. But at the end of the day, it's about following your dreams, knowing what you want to do. Yes. You seem to have a different thought on that.
Well, I could give you one more example for the road.
One for the road.
So, at the end of Tam CC, took a gap year. I'll give you the quick rundown.
Uh-huh.
When I was looking into higher education, my dad actually wanted me to be a pilot. He signed me up for flight school in Miami and so on. He wanted me to be a pilot. To me, it was cool. Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? I could be a pilot. But I cannot sit for long. I was like, how am I going to sit in the air and fly for all these hours? And you have to have how much hundreds of thousands of miles to become, establishing a career. And I was just thinking about that. I was like, I can't do it. I like to fly, but I can't do it every day And Soristan would have heard of that. Soristan called an emergency meeting. And he said, so that is a piece of advice. He said, and I quote, do what you want to do. Follow your dreams, pursue something that you like, and you'll make it. So I didn't just disregard my parents. I didn't say to disobey.
Right.
But,
Folks, Javid Mitchell, as a recent graduate of Howard University in the U.S., graduated top of his class, his science class, top of the university with a perfect GPA. And as you're saying, Javid, you grew up, in case anybody's wondering where your story comes from, you grew up like a regular little boy,
mm-hmm.
regular family, but your story is one of commitment and dedication.
Persistence is key. Persistence, hard work. Yeah.
Non palma sine labore.
No reward without labor.
That's one thing we share in common. We went there in different generations, but we understand there's no reward without labor. Javid Mitchell, folks. I certainly, Javid, I'm hoping we will keep in touch as you continue. You want to work with Daddy, or you're deciding to go off on your own?
I honestly want to come back home. Love the business, so my end goal is to come back and expand and to.
Tell me a little bit before because what do you see yourself the emergence of technology and what that is, the solar and all of these sort of things?
Yeah. So
are you seeing a convergence, and how does technology help to embrace all to help with that?
So in how it ties in, like with the solar, for example, I've been using technology to do a lot of predictions, solar-wise. So, for example, for my dad, we'd come up with, let's say you have a project, you want to put a panel or a solar system on your house. We would run simulations, what the system would produce, savings if you put this size system, so it helps you to eliminate a lot of the guesswork. So I would be sending a proposal to you, and we would have numbers or facts to show. So that's one thing, how the technology integrates. We would be able to maybe fly a drone or pull footage of your property and lay it out for you and show you how it would look. So that's some aspects where you can use it. In terms of energy efficiency, for example, the appliances, I believe in automation a lot. So I've been doing like a lot of Internet of Things, smart thermostats, all those kind of things to save you electricity. So honestly, everything is intricately connected. So no matter what field you go in, I think every field that you could possibly think of, there's a way that you can use. Yeah.
There's a point of convergence. He still remembers the words that was said to him by the late Sir Royston Hopkins. Do what you want to do. Follow your dreams. Your passion, dedication to task is important. And certainly for whoever you are. Javid, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
You go back home. You want to go back to the U.S. So how was universities all done? You're moving on to do what next?
So I've ventured into consulting.
Silicon Valley, possibly?
No.
Or do you have plans to go to Silicon Valley?
As I initially in school, still in Grenada, Silicon Valley was a big thing for me. I don't know where the future will take me. Maybe I would end up in Silicon Valley. I've been in California a few times. Yes.
I get a feeling it's in the back of your head somewhere there. Silicon Valley, here comes the young Grenadian former student of the GBSS, former student of the time, CC, makes his way, making waves in the Silicon Valley. Grenada, remember the name Javid Williams. You may hear about it somewhere. Mitchell. You may hear about it somewhere. Remember, he is good, as you said. He quite gainfully said he's 100% Grenadian. Grew up as an average child like everybody else. He wasn't top of the class, but you were?
Persistent.
You were persistent. That's where we leave the conversation here on the Mid-Morning Buzz. It's always a pleasure being here with you. Reminding you that the luncheon edition comes up at the top of the hour, and it's going to be a production of News and Current Affairs Department. Until then, JC loves you. Have yourself a really great one, all of you that's in television. The good Lord's willing, I'll be with you tomorrow, as we do on all Saturdays, from 10 on till 2 o'clock. Until then, peace and love. JC loves you. And remember the name, Javid Mitchell, Silicon Valley. Here we come.
Thank you.